Wow. What a day, huh? Welcome everybody to the U.S. Pirates. I called it an anti-inaugural ball, but it's kind of like a common. We're going to be commiserating, and I'm going to be drinking out of the skull of my enemy. So, anyways, my name is Drew Bingaman. I am the captain of the United States Pirate Party. I'm going to ask anybody else that joins in, just so you know, you can if you're not on our Discord server right now, you can go to uspirates.org/join, and there will be a link to join the Discord. And in the Discord, you can find the link to this live stream to join us to participate. Will be in the announcement section. Otherwise, you can watch on our YouTube channel. Uh, just look up United States Pirate Party, and I'm pretty sure we're the only ones. So we should be live now, and awesome. And I'm just gonna ask everybody to give us an introduction. And Mikey, I see you first.
Hi, I'm Mike from Ohio. I saw you guys online. I figured I'd come and listen in.
All right, thank you, Alan.
Hello, I'm Alan. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, and wow, I had heard of the Pirate Party before, and then got to attend a meeting with you when the USTP folks and the Pirate Party folks got together, and I am glad to be invited back. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
very
I
much.
hope I look forward to having some more conversations with you guys. Yeah, that's good stuff. Dan.
Hey, Dan Tweed here in Thousand Oaks, California. Community science officer for the United States Transhumanist Party, and also their former vice presidential candidate, along with Tom Ross, who ran for the top slot. And also ran for city council here a few times.
Good for you.
Broke 5% this time. Not spending any money. Keeping the money out of politics by not raising or spending any. You know?
That's good stuff. No, that's really good stuff. I've done that in my city too. I've run for city council and have gotten a decent showing, but far from being elected, but without really spending any money. So because if you spend money, then you got to track it, and it's all kinds of paperwork, and it's so much easier just to self fund if it's, especially in a city election. So yeah, fun stuff today. My God, where do we even start, right? So
About that preacher from Detroit, he put on quite the performance.
I missed that. What was that?
He did the inaugural, I don't know, blessing maybe would be the word for it. But he was pulling out Let Freedom Ring over here in Chicago and Let Freedom Ring over there. And, anyway, the whole list. And man, he stole a little bit from some Martin Luther King speeches. And it was, I don't know how much of it he actually wrote himself, but he sure put all the parts together in quite the performance. I mean, with the classic Southern Baptist, emotional, guttural noises and singing. It was something else.
They really do
for the snake handling to start,
Yeah, with drinking. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed if they started drinking strychnine either, but not going to force anybody to do that. We're just sit back and watch. But yeah, I mean, only thing I could stomach was I watched Trump's inauguration speech just so I could take a few notes so that we could discuss some things. And I watched the 3 or 4 minutes that Elon Musk came on afterwards, and he's really, I don't know where this guy how he's got a bigger head, I think, than Trump does. I don't know what, and he's never been elected to anything, right? I mean, at least Trump can say millions of people voted for me, right? So anyways, we have some people joining us. I see Doonan. If you would like to introduce yourself, let us know what state you're in.
I'm not in from America. I'm in Sweden,
Oh,
and
welcome.
I'm new to the pirate politics movement in general.
Great. Awesome. Well, hang in there. We'll
I found out about the movement after when the EU introduced a law called Check and Control 2.0, and I looked for political parties that were against that law because I were against that law, and I found the Pirate Party.
Awesome. Well, Sweden. Wait, I apologize. Sweden, I think, is where the party was birthed.
Yes,
It was all after after the Pirate Bay got taken down and raided, and that's when the
yeah, I read about that. It was back in 2006 when it started.
and we started up shortly after that. I haven't been involved that long myself. I discovered the party a few years ago, and I joined, and yeah, it's good stuff. Well, thank you for joining us, and I'll be asking some questions around. I will be interested to hear. We're mostly talking about the inauguration of Donald Trump, which most of us are not very happy about. So I'd be interested to hear some of your opinions then when we go talk about some of this stuff. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Doc Agnew, let us know where you're from.
From Ohio, I worked on a Vermin Supreme's campaign as a volunteer.
Awesome. Well, welcome. And once again, I will let everybody know that you can find the link to this live stream to get in here to participate in the Discord server of the United States Pirate Party, which you can get a link to on uspirates.org/join. And feel free to pop in for a minute, have a drink. I gotta get it in front of the. I gotta get my skull mug in front of the camera here. But yeah, have a drink with us, commiserate a little bit. Tell us what you think about Trump, or what you think about the stuff that's come out of his mouth today, or in recent days, or whatever. And I think that's what we're going to get into now. I saw. I don't even so I don't even know where to start. Panama Canal. Are we gonna send troops to the Panama Canal? I mean, anybody have thoughts on that? Like, are we gonna? I mean, I don't know. Any opinions on that?
I certainly have a few. I mean, I spent 32 years in the military, and I didn't go to Panama the last time that the U.S. sent troops down there, but we've done it before. I think it's a ridiculous proposition. I mean, what can we get out of owning Panama that we can't get by just letting our ships pay their way through? Most of our ships no longer fit through the Panama Canal. The other one that's problematic is, of course, Greenland, which is really part of Denmark, which is a NATO country. And there's a thing in NATO called Article 5, which basically it's, the treaty clause that says an attack on any NATO nation is an attack on all the NATO nations.
Right.
So essentially us attacking Greenland would be this not only breaking ourselves out of that treaty, but attacking all of the NATO countries at once. So silly as that is, I'm no Trump supporter, so but I do think aspirationally, as the way the world is moving forward, I think regional blocks will become ever more important. And I think basically if we could develop a North American regional block, we would be miles ahead in the world. Might as well call it the Gulf of America, right? Or maybe Gulf of North America. But Panama Canal is probably a relatively good stopping point on the way to South America, to say that's as far as we're going. And but yeah, the whole rhetoric about, we need it for national security, against the dozen puffins that are there, and it's all of that sort of talk is bollocks. And and the idea that while a regional sort of market space would really be good in the global economy in the next decade, none of the rest of Trump's rhetoric has anything to do with making friends with Canada and Mexico.
Right. So that's where I was gonna go. That's where I was gonna go. Is that we used to have, I don't know what the state of it is anymore, but we've had NAFTA since the 90s, right? So
Right.
that was the idea. The idea behind that was to give us that was an economic grouping so that we could have free trade in North America. And it looks like and sometimes I really wonder if Trump even really knows what he's talking about. Because personally, I wonder if he's talking about Iceland.
Right.
Because that's a beautiful country. And I mean, I don't know.
And there might be some question as to whether or not Denmark has a claim on Iceland.
I mean, speaking of things that comes out of his mouth, and another thing that was in his speech was ending of birthright citizenship. And when I heard somebody ask him about this the other day, he started going on about the wet foot, dry foot policy that had to do with the Cuban immigrants that, what are you talking about? You don't even know what this is. And you're going to end it. He doesn't this is in our Constitution that if you are born here, and there's two exceptions, like diplomats, I think have an exception because they're a representative of a foreign power, and
Right.
and in an invading army that is commanded by a foreign power, and despite what your government in Texas wants to do, immigrants coming here on their own, whether it's legal or not, is not an invading army.
Yes, correct. Yes.
That's my opinion anyway.
My wife pointed out, she said, we were both born of American parents, right, on American soil. So we've got the blood and soil thing working. But if you get rid of birthright citizenship, well, our parents were only citizens because they were born here. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, so does that mean they're not citizens? So now I'm not a citizen by birth either. So I mean,
apparently between
generations of people like that,
right? Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of people that were born of immigrant parents, and I mean, I don't understand why. I don't even, this is really one of those things where it seems like there's a fundamental misunderstanding of how things work in this reactionary right wing. I don't even want to call it the Republican Party anymore because it's really Trump's party. It's Trump and his crazy idea men that pump ideas into his head, and then the crazies get on it. So I don't.
Well, Captain, I don't know. I mean, are you familiar with the difference between ignorance and apathy?
I mean, I have an idea, but
I mean, so it's I don't know and I don't care, right? Ignorance and apathy. I don't know and I don't care. And I think with Trump, he doesn't care. It doesn't matter if he knows. And this is my last hope I'm clinging to, because it did seem to be indicative of his communication during his first term. He says outlandish stuff, but it's directionally the way he wants to go.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if I say, oh, you know what? I think I got $1 million riding on this. Everybody knows I'm not even a gambler, so I'm not riding $1 million on anything. I'm just expressing that as a way to demonstrate my confidence in the fact that this thing's going to happen. And so, when he says, whatever, when he starts talking about our national boundaries from Panama to Greenland or whatever, and he just that ridiculous stuff, and he's going to deport everybody in the country in a day. I mean, that's just
troops to the border. You're gonna have a bunch of troops down there in Texas.
Yeah. So I think he is pointing the way he wants to go, even if his rhetoric is completely untenable based on our form of government and unlikely based on our even our elected officials who are pretty much up for the highest bidder. Who's out there, by the way? Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome, Jester. You like to
Hello,
introduce
everyone.
yourself?
Hello all, I am Ashley Melody. I am the interim representative for the Indiana Pirate Party.
All right. Thanks for joining us. We were just talking about some of the outlandish, asinine things that Trump thinks he's going to do. Some immediately, and some. Oh, here's the one that I love, and it's two things. Specifically in his speech, he talked about creating an external revenue service, and of course, we've heard of his Department of Government Efficiency, and I don't even want to say the word because I don't want to pump the crypto.
Yeah, exactly. I did hear he wanted to tax other countries, but I hadn't heard about it.
That's what I was thinking about when regarding Trump. And I saw a video from a guy called Mudahar who owns the YouTube channel Some Ordinary Gamers, and he showed that there's one guy that owns 80% of his pump and dump, and if someone owns 80% of this meme coin, it's a clear indication it is a pump and dump scheme. And
Sure.
having a president that literally going to scam his own audience is kind of sketchy.
Well, none of that surprises me. I mean, the man has been a grifter. He is a grifter. I think he used the same tactics to become president in the first place, and I think he used similar tactics to get him there this time. He just talks out of his ass, and so I don't know how enough people aren't calling him on it. But I mean, when we talk about these things, like the External Revenue Service and the Department of Government Efficiency, I love how we're gonna bring spending down, and we're gonna make the federal government smaller by expanding it. I mean,
right, and we're going to make your money worth more by devaluing it.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I want to know is, how is he going to be arming the External Revenue Service?
Well, I think basically, what was it, Smedley Butler's comment, his little speech and short book about war's a racket. Smedley Butler is one of the most highly decorated Marine Corps. But yeah, he basically said the U.S. Marines are, they went down to basically back up the Del Monte Company and their fruit raising practices in South America, and that's what the Marines did. They were enforcers, like mob enforcers. I mean,
yeah, there's no doubt that the United States Armed Forces have been puppets of commercial and commercial interests for decades, and this is why it's bad to have billionaires running the country. I mean, 100 years,
smartest idea.
Yeah, 100 years ago, it was millionaires, running the country, and that was bad. And looks like the country realized it for a few years, but that didn't last. I don't know. Anybody think that the External Revenue Service is actually going to be a success?
Well, if it's a plan to grab an asteroid or something, I could maybe be on board. That's really external.
It'll never make it past the House. I mean, he's just Trump talking shit as usual.
That's all it was him talking shit. As far
that's all it is. It's Trump talking shit as usual. I don't get worked up about it. I lived through Trump 1. I'll survive Trump 2.
Right.
I'm not gonna get my knickers in a twist over it.
I'm mostly trying to make the best of it through comedy.
Yeah, well, I was more worried about a Kamala Harris administration than I was about a Trump administration. So maybe the lesser evil did win.
I don't know about that, but we don't get to find out.
No, we don't. Somebody does, according to quantum theory. That there is like a parallel universe right now where Kamala took the presidency, and there's another timeline opening up under that. So,
And theoretically, there's a timeline where everybody's happy and we live in a great country. Like, you know, I mean, at
that
least
would
there's
As
that.
if that would ever happen.
that would
Yeah.
definitely work.
Anything that's possible.
Yeah, I mean that's the one we're supposed to go back to, right? I threw Smedley Butler's speech in the chat there for you. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think he said, "I was a gangster for capitalism."
That's right. Yeah.
Part of his,
Smedley
remember
Butler is
reading-
one of those interesting figures in American history that honestly needs to be talked more about, yet we never
Yep.
bring him up. I
Mhm.
can't
Yeah.
tell if partially is that why it's just people don't care, or if it's more genuine, like not wanting his story to be known, because lest the we proles realize that their military is mostly used to enforce capital.
Sure. I mean, my son went in the Marine Corps and went through basic training and came back telling me about Smedley Butler, and he had all his campaigns and all the medals he'd won, and the Medal of Honor twice. And I go, did they tell you about his book based on his speech called "War is a Racket"? He was like, no, I didn't mention that. I was like, okay, you're gonna read that,
That
and
and
he played along with the so-called businessman's plot. He was going to be their figurehead when
That's
they
right,
had
for
staged the
president.
coup of rich people. So maybe the businessman's plot has finally come about.
Well, let's not throw Butler under the bus there. I mean, so Butler, at least from the records I've read of the situation, is that Butler was sort of like, smiling and nodding when all these
Yeah.
businessmen bring him in, and he's like, "Okay, sure, TM." And then the second he gets out, he's like sprints over Congress. It's like they're trying to coup the government,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
the government was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, all of you don't do that, and you're fine." You know. You're fascists and you want a coup, but as long as you don't do that, we'll all be fine here. After all, we're gonna need you guys in 20 years when we beat the Nazis. Sorry, that's my hot take. Where I feel like we would if we only opposed the Nazis under the grounds that they opposed us economically.
Oh, sure, but we didn't do that. IBM was their ticket to help making their war machine run smoothly. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
there were a whole lot of American companies that were on board. It really was only because the Japanese attacked us. I'm pretty sure it's only because the Japanese attacked us and that they were allies of the Nazis.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Part of the reason why we got involved was because we were allies with Britain, or at least nominally were, and Britain could not tolerate Germany being dominant on the European continent. It was only okay with France, and that was only barely. So
It's
there
only okay with the Vichy government. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. The Vichy government is like a whole other story. It's I've studied this way too much, but there is a very interesting story to be told about the Vichy government. But part of the reason why France and Britain guaranteed Poland was because both of them, the history of World War I and fear of another, Germany ascendant. So if you have a situation where the U.S. doesn't have to back Britain, you could have seen the United States and Germany working together, partially because our systems of, our social systems were very similar to each other. And, the US was really only in it for the money and, to back its allies in Europe. But had it not been the case, you very well could have seen the US backing Germany just to spite the Soviet Union.
Sure. Well, yeah, and Germany and the U.S. have been closely related. I mean, there's only ever been one vote for a national language, and it was a vote for German. So,
But
I can't say much. My people came from Germany, so but they came over here before the country was formed.
That
So
was probably the Amish vote that brought Trump into office.
the Pennsylvania Amish, yeah, they're
if I'm not wrong, I think the Soviets and the Germans, Nazi Germany, were very good friends before Germany decided to invade the Soviet Union.
oh yeah, they had treaties. Yeah.
I mean, that's running into the sort of like post-war Cold War hysteria nonsense and whatnot. That entire statement is loaded with the McCarthy era baggage of trying to justify us, starting a forever war with the Soviets. I mean, if you ever like read the documents of the Nazis or the Soviets of that agreement, is that while both of them are trying to say on paper and to each other that, oh yes, great friends, we'll not attack each other, on their actual backline intelligence, both of them are trying to calculate when would be the best time to stab the other in the back, because both of
Yeah.
them were so ideologically opposed to one another that neither of them could exist next to each other for long. In fact, it's more so a miracle that the agreement there lasted as long as it did, honestly.
Yeah, I think Hitler hated communists in his own country, right? Like that was a thing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Well,
it was. The first
yeah.
group that Hitler purged was not the not the LGBTQ community. It was not the conservatives or anybody else. The first group to be sent to camps was, in fact, the Communist Party, though they were sent to a different camp than what would end up becoming the more infamous camps.
Yeah, are you familiar with the book? What is it, The Righteous Mind? I think that's what it's called. Anyway, it's very much a discussion of why people create this sort of, mental model in their head about we're on the side of righteousness and they're not. Or no, I'm sorry, that's not the title of the book. It's The True Believer. But yeah, the author does talk considerably about the relations between the Nazis and the communist parties, and how they both saw each other as the best poaching ground for good leaders, but they wanted to kill anybody that wouldn't convert. So yeah, because of this idea that they have this, they want to be true believers, and whether it's in Nazism or communism. So it's an interesting point of view in that
Oh
book.
yeah, there's a huge overlap. So if any of you are familiar with Hearts of Iron 4, there might be an ideological group you know of called syndicalism, which is basically the communists. Well, okay, it's not really it's one of those things where it is in the same family of ideological beliefs, but it's different in the sense that instead of a political party leading the people, it's instead trade unions are the political base of the country.
Oh,
But
interesting.
anyway, interesting thing happening in the interwar period is the amount both the Nazis, the fascists, and the communists trying to poach the syndicalist movement, and how many syndicalists either go to the communists or go to the fascists as the war is about to break out. So you have instances like the national syndicalism of Spain and Italy, where the syndicalists sided mostly with the fascists, though big asterisks to Catalonia because the CNTFAI was different. Again, multiple history is complicated. There's multiple sides, but it's that single ideological grouping there that is simultaneously willing to go more nationalist, but is also simultaneously much farther left than the fascists want. But then you have that whole thing of the Nazis and the communists poaching leaders from that movement in particular. Sorry, that was just big side tangent, interesting to me. Sorry.
No, I think that's awesome. Yeah, and Eric Hoffer's point was really this idea of believing in a mass movement is a whole sort of thing in and of itself, which is probably greater than psychologically. It ranks higher than either one of the or any of the three or four ideologies, right? So.
I think this is a good time to consider obtaining a water vessel, living and traveling on it. Like the pirates of old. I mean, you're kind of.
Where's our seasteaders?
Yeah, well, I'm into the idea of seasteading. I have a project called Sequatoria, where we figured out if you could actually create mariculture at the equator, it would only take about a 40-kilometer wide band to theoretically undo all the damage we've done to the climate with CO2. There was an X Prize called the Gigacarbon X Prize, and so I met some folks interested in doing that, and we're exploring, how to build infrastructure. There's actually a great project called Atlas Island, which is about people owning their boats, but also sharing infrastructure at sea. Like floating marinas and all kinds of.
Are those the big boats that can actually fold and turn into like vertical? I mean, part of it will be on the surface, and when it gets to where it wants to stop, the rest of it just like folds down and becomes like almost like a mine shaft with. Have you heard of those? Because
there's a famous research vessel called Flip that does that. I think it's run by Scripps, but yeah, it has the ability to turn 90 degrees and then have a huge submerged part, which is actually very interesting because if you stick a pipe down so many hundreds of feet, the water pressure is enough that you could just get fresh water. If you have a membrane, like a reverse osmosis membrane at the bottom, you've essentially created like an unlimited well of fresh water. So and making seaweed, growing seaweed, farming seaweed is a huge economic opportunity. I think it could be done robotically. You could even transport the stuff with drones and dry it with solar energy. This is going to be a really fun, maybe possible collaborative community science project between the transhumanists and the pirate party. Because
I also heard regarding seaweed. I heard on a documentary that seaweed can prevent you getting ALS or Alzheimer's.
Yeah. And they put it in like cow feed, and it stops their methane production if you add it to their feed. So that's just an interesting thing to think about because like Tim Leary used to say, if you're not happy, move. Freedom of movement is like key to the American experiment. And what better freedom of movement is there than being a world citizen, world traveler with your own water vessel. And I think you could build them pretty cheaply too, out of like recycled, upcycled industrial, low cost industrial drums and things. But anyway, that's my little spiel about sequatoria and seasteading.
That is
go for
fascinating.
it.
That is fascinating. That would be something that is very interesting to me. But I haven't exactly, even though I'm the pirate captain, I haven't exactly got my sea legs yet. So working on that.
Well, I know the other California pirate is actually
he lives on
a
one
Liberty ship there.
Yeah.
That was interesting to hear him talk about that.
And,
Yep. He lives on one, and we haven't voted on it yet, but we might be having our conference there in July on the ship.
That's awesome.
Which would be really cool. So that has to yet to come together, but looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing how that all works out. What did he? I mean, did I get most of the crazy shit that he said during his inaugural speech? I think we talked about most of that.
I didn't watch it, so I was kind of hoping to hear a rundown from the folks attending this.
I mean, here were my quick notes. He's going to end birthright citizenship. I mean, we all know about the immediate immigration stuff. He's going to put troops. He's declaring an immigration emergency. He's also declaring an energy emergency, so that I guess he gets extra powers to let people drill or something. Like,
so it's twofold here. So it's twofold. The first thing here is to give him the rights to, basically allow for fracking and, various oil, coal, and natural gas facilities to start expediting their approval without having to, while being able to ignore various congressional or state level authorities. And the second part is to deliberately sabotage the homegrown renewables market, which was something that we were trying to focus on during the Biden years because China is way ahead of us on solar and wind power technologies. They just are. I've done a bit of I'm not a professional on it, but I've done enough research that I can say I'm fairly confident that they're ahead of us in that regard. So the initial part of the investment that we had under Biden was to try and catch up. But now Trump's just like throwing caution to the wind and is going to give them that dominance in that market just because a bunch of oil barons are wanting to, have whatever, wanting to have control over the energy grid.
I mean, at the same time, I don't understand why, with since he's all buddy with all these tech guys, right now the big thing is they're talking about AI and how much electricity AI and AI data centers is going to be using. I mean, I'm not far from I'm about an hour away from 3 Mile Island, which is going to be spun back up because Microsoft contracted for it, so that they can power data centers.
That's why they want Greenland too. I watched Larry Sharp talk about it the other day. They want data centers on Greenland because they don't have to provide extra cooling. They've got natural cooling there because those data centers run hot.
Yeah,
you need air conditioning for those. They can reduce the cost of data centers by moving to Greenland.
a lot of NVIDIA GPUs are firing pretty heavily, and if anybody's a gamer and has one of those in their own computer, you know how hot they get. So
yeah, this is going to be a bit of this is going to be ridiculous. And here I was hoping to take advantage of the situation to promote nuclear energy, but that's never going to happen.
I mean, well, at the same time, there are people that are still doing. They say there's some big breakthroughs in fusion. But they've been saying that for 50 years. So, we'll see how that comes out. But I mean, if they do get fusion going, we certainly can, at least for our electricity purposes, get off of a lot of fossil fuels, which would be a good thing.
Well, I think nuclear power, even as expensive as the outdated model we use. I mean, we chose that form of energy generation because it supported nuclear weapons. But there are other forms of generating electricity through nuclear power that do not do the same.
Molten salt reactors are like 10,000 times safer than water-cooled reactors. I mean,
pebble bed reactors, salt bed reactors, they're all safer. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And fossil fuels are frankly too valuable to burn. They're great feedstocks for 3D printing and stuff. It's like, why would you want to burn that stuff? I mean, concentrated solar energy is already cheaper than, almost any other kind of energy.
Right. I mean, it's not like even if we get off of oil for energy that we still wouldn't need it for all the other stuff we make with oil. I mean,
right.
We don't have good cheap alternatives yet. I mean, there are alternatives, but they're not all that cheap and not quite as durable. Most of the organic stuff is not as durable and doesn't last as long. I mean, obviously that's a problem in and of itself. Like is that lump of plastic still floating out in the ocean there? I don't know.
Probably.
It still is. I mean,
yeah, probably.
Yeah. The other thing about gas and electricity, automotive gas, benzene, and electricity that's only 20% of our nation's oil and petroleum consumption. I mean, ships still run on crude, trains run on crude. I mean
that floating garbage in the sea is a plastic mine for an entrepreneur.
It is. Yeah.
Honestly, that's true. Like, you take a ship out there with a big net and like bring it back or recycle it on the ocean, right? Like, and
that guy's got to be
so tiny now. They say everyone's got like a credit card worth of plastic just in their bodies if you took all the tiny nano plastic particles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the microplastics are a problem.
Clothing. If you're wearing polyester clothing, it's getting into your body through your skin.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
Like that is how tiny the polyester fibers are.
Ugh.
I have polyester flakes for breakfast every day, so I think.
Well, Elon Musk has said that he's trying to accelerate the transition away from fossil fuels, and that's why he's doing electric cars. So maybe he can, explain a little bit of science to the new.
Maybe he can explain how metal mining affects the water supply, like with nickel and cobalt. Lithium's not that bad. I mean, it's plentiful and stuff like that, but the nickel and cobalt get into the water supplies. It's heavy metal poison. You don't want that in your water supply. I mean, silver's not going to hurt you in the water supply, so that could potentially be substituted for nickel. It's got a higher conductivity. I don't know about its electromotive force. It's been too long since my high school or college chemistry. I don't know, one or the other. But,
I know one of the things that I saw recently interesting for batteries is atomic batteries. Have you guys heard about atomic batteries? They apparently work as almost like closed solar cells because you use a transit. Apparently, if a certain radiation hits a specific type of transistor, it creates voltage and current, and you can create a battery that way. And so far, the technology is only really for low voltage applications. But these are batteries that can supply their base current for like 100 years. So I mean, if you could get that, that's like, I mean, you're still making disposable, quote unquote, disposable batteries, but 100-year battery is something, like especially in something like these, that'd be amazing, right? Like if you could get it so that it'd be the right size and shape to fit into a.
It's just there are material limits to some of what we can scale down to, like personal user size. I mean, we're stuck with personal material limits when it comes to personalizing electronics.
Right.
Yeah, I think Samsung is one of the leaders in that radioactive battery thing. And my understanding is they've gotten the thing down to about the size of a 22-foot container unit, basically, so which is, I mean, depending on what you're using your battery for, if you're going to run a factory with it, that's great, but yeah, it's not going to power yourself.
I mean, it sure could be great for applications that are that you drop it in the middle of nowhere,
right?
For off-grid kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean,
and it's one of those emergency situation like LA fires, telephone poles burning down, and whatever, the energy grid's in jeopardy. Boom, drop that thing in there and just start hooking people up.
Yeah, speaking of these small thermionic generators, that's what the Voyager spacecraft had, because it was too far from the sun for solar to work. And so, it's got a little out on the end of a boom. There's, it's making like 500-600 watts just from the decay heat of some plutonium, I think it is. But speaking of plutonium, do you ever hear that story of the radioactive Boy Scout who built like a breeder reactor?
Breeder reactor from smoke detectors.
Yeah, he got a hold of all kinds of
building cells that way.
Sources, and it was actually shooting a neutron beam, and it was getting more radioactive in this garden shed in his parents' backyard.
I hadn't heard that one. Well, what they use in smoke detectors, which is like a microgram right now, is americium, which is like, but that will break down into like plutonium or even uranium fissionable material. You could if you get enough of the americium, but damn, he'd have to have a lot of smoke detectors.
Oh yeah, I think it was hundreds.
I think he was getting the used, whatever used ones that were discarded.
It was just wow.
I mean, that technically is renewable energy. The whole breeder reactor.
It is.
Oh yeah. He had the Atomic Energy Commission show up at his door. His parents were surprised. Yeah.
So
don't try this at home because you'll end up dead unless you really know what you're doing. Because he did, if I recall correctly, he ended up like dead of like massive radiation exposure.
Oh yeah. But then not immediately, but I mean, I think he lived another 20-30 years, but still.
No, he didn't die immediately. In fact, he went into the armed forces, and I think he became a reactor guy in the Navy.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So I mean,
that's the kid you want, right?
It's the kind of guy that the CIA wants to recruit.
Yeah.
Those old, Gilbert chemistry sets. Some of those came with radioactive stuff.
Right. Yeah. In the 1950s, I think, didn't they?
Yeah.
They had them all the way, up until I grew up. We had a little vial of uranium chloride or something like that we could play around with.
Yeah.
In the chemistry sets in the late 60s, early 70s. So.
Yeah, I'm just imagining that guy's first day on the ship. He's like, "Yeah, Skipper, I know you call it highly advanced, but I built a better one in my garage."
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, talk about community science. It's a little bit, don't try this at home, kids.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, that's definitely a don't try this at home. Hey, so let me get into a couple of. Let's get into this. What are your predictions over under on assassination attempts?
They will continue. I mean, those.
I will take odds on it. He's minted these coins with his images. There's been a lot of occult forces trying to get him assassinated. So I think it depends on which side wins. I don't think a Trump assassination would be good for the country.
I don't think so either.
Agree.
I think the attempts. I think that in his speech he actually said. In his speech he said that it was he was spared for a purpose, but
yeah,
I think that purpose is to prevent a civil war.
I think that is. I think the Secret Service needs to do their job and keep him secure until they can retire him, and then we can reset in 4 years and see where we are.
Any other predictions on assassination attempts?
Well, I think they really want JD Vance.
Here.
Go ahead, Jester.
So my opinion is that if someone successfully does the deed, as it were, any civil war that could possibly happen is going to be an interfactional war between the various members of the Republican Party, between the MAGA wing and the more traditional power base of the Republican Party that doesn't want MAGA in power. Now, that's not to say they don't want what MAGA wants. I would argue that they mostly want what MAGA wants. They just don't like the utter madness that is MAGA.
Yeah, the chaos.
It's, wanting someone sane at the steering wheel rather than having, a loony. At least that is my prediction if something was to go horribly wrong.
Yeah, a buddy of mine used to work for the Secret Service, and he was the guy in charge of the big bulletproof speaker lectern or podium. And those guys, they do a lot of amazing things to keep the president and those folks safe. So, I mean, and I was in the military when Obama was elected and got, there was briefings about how many assassination attempts or plots or discussions, that people had and that they had kind of interrupted. And like for Trump, we had, one active shooter and, one guy just shooting up the golf course. But that's not the only two, areas.
They got the closest. You mean you're saying you think they got the closest?
Yeah, right. There's other folks that they've stopped in their tracks. I'm sure. I'm retired now. I don't have access to that stuff, but I'm sure there's multiple threads.
61 years old and emphysema. I don't want to live through a Ted Nugent free-for-all world. Please do not assassinate Donald J. Trump. We only have to handle him for another 4 years.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. As much as I liked Ted Nugent growing up, man, I think that
I still like his music.
He went nuts too, though. Like he had this level where he was doing the I eat everything, I eat what I kill, and that was cool. And then he went way nuts.
Well, I don't know. I mean, when he went right first, and he was like pro freedom, pro free speech.
Yep.
Don't ban my music. That kind of stuff. And that seemed like, right wing, arguably, but pretty much based on constitutional values, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he got to talking to his neighbor, George W.
The radicalization of everybody. I think that's what we're looking at. Oh yeah, Denali. We're gonna stop calling Denali, and we're gonna take that back to Mount McKinley again.
I hate that. Right?
Because,
Like, that's dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, because William McKinley enriched the rich people during his time. That was what he said in his speech. That's
buy
ridiculous.
mapping futures, because they're going to have to adjust all the maps. Buy futures in the companies that have to do all the remapping, that renaming stuff involved. Not investment, not financial advice. I'm just saying.
No, definitely
I
not.
get you. Yeah, I am not a financial advisor, but I would suggest that any company that donated $1 million to Trump's inauguration will probably be faring better over the next 4 years. With,
And I do propose that all of the CEOs of those companies have a one-way express ticket to hell as soon as the devil makes the arrangements.
Yeah.
Well, we've had
a board.
Do you really think the devil would put up with those fucks?
You know what? That's a good point.
Yeah, maybe it was a devil that stopped that bullet. It wasn't God at all.
Maybe
it's like God and the devil are just sitting there.
Yeah, not yet.
Not
yet, buddy. Not yet.
Soon. No, keep them away.
Could be. All I had to do is redirect it a little bit. Right?
Give him a chance for salvation before
Have you guys ever seen the show Lucifer?
Yeah, I've seen it, but I don't watch it. I've seen an episode.
Same here.
Oh, yeah. I'm like imagining God and Lucifer like that, where he's like, "Why are you sending them to me?"
Yeah, good. Yeah, I don't know that we've had a couple of people join us. Colonel John, would you like to introduce yourself, please? You are muted currently if you're not aware of that.
Well, John Karras is an interesting guy. He's on Cameo like I am, and he also has climbed Mount Everest and been to the edge of space and run for being a candidate for the Transhumanist Party. So maybe he stepped away, but yeah.
That is possible. And Jolly Mitch, welcome.
Hey, Mitch.
Ahoy. Hello, everyone. Sorry I'm late, but I'm happy that you guys are still going so I can join the festivities.
We're having a fun conversation. Trying to make the best of it, you know?
Hey, a fellow land value rental guy. There. Well, good to see you again, Jolly.
Oh, I see.
I was just land pilling one of my coworkers just the other day, telling him about Henry George. 90-some-year-old volunteer at the hospital finally convinced him to read Progress in Poverty.
You know, that would end warfare. I mean, if that could become the official canon of the pirates, man, that would be great. You know, it would end warfare. Because most of the wars are fought over stuff that we shouldn't be fighting over. We should be peacefully sharing it, you know, in the marketplace.
Land and resources, and if we get this fusion stuff going, we don't need that'll help. So let's see here. Let's see. Over under on impeachments. Do we think how's that going to go? We think we're going to have a couple more impeachments? No,
I say it's not going to happen. It didn't happen last time when there were guardrails. It's not going to happen this time.
Well, not so much actually convictions, but like articles of impeachment drafted.
It may well happen. Yeah, that may well happen.
Well, he's got 2 years at least of a Republican Congress, so at the very least, he's safe for the next 2 years. But and I say this as someone who doesn't anticipate the Democrats having any success in the coming years. But if a Democratic House somehow comes back, maybe I could see another third impeachment. But I'm sick of the impeachments and him in general. I just want him gone as quick as I can.
I think he should go for the Guinness, actually. I think wouldn't it be a Guinness World Record, a third impeachment of a president?
I think so. I don't know that anybody's been impeached that many times.
No, it's 2 is a record, so he'll just be bumping
up to speed. But I think he needs to set a high watermark that nobody else can equal.
I mean, the good thing about an impeachment proceeding is at least that keeps the Congress busy.
Yeah,
and it keeps them from passing garbage.
Nothing gets done, which is what we want.
Yeah, gridlock is not a bad thing. Not when one party has control mostly.
It's like I love. It's like during like any sort of like Democratic administration, I'm like push them left. Push them left. Republican administration, I am Ron Swanson. I will do everything in my power to ensure that this government does as little as it can do possibly.
Well, I mean, they do want to take us back to the 1950s, and that I think they really want to wholeheartedly do that. And And speaking of that, how many insane SCOTUS decisions do we think there's going to be in this administration? I mean, do you think
it remains less than one handful? Yeah.
Man.
Well, I think the people that are aging out are conservative justices anyway, so it's just going to be replacement. I don't think it's going to really swing the court that much.
No, I don't think you can swing the court much, but it is the only problem with that is that anybody leaving during his administration is going to get replaced with another Trump Republican or Trump conservative. Right. I don't even want to, like I said, I don't even want to call them conservatives. I don't even want to call them Republicans.
They're neither. They're not Republicans.
They're not. Yeah, they're not
conservatives. Yeah, they're radicals and they're authoritarians of some kind. MAGA.
They're MAGA. They're the MAGA party.
They're all loonies.
Very much so.
Yeah, I feel like they should call it the Emperor Has No Clothes Party or something.
I swear he's going to come out one morning and he's not going to have any clothes on. And, and he's going to give some kind of a dress that way.
His father was walking around, with no pants on so he's got all
kinds of. That didn't happen under Joe Biden now, honestly.
So, I think he had people that were wrangling him.
Yeah.
I don't know that Trump will.
He doesn't trust wranglers,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could easily see him coming out and saying, "Look at this new shirt that Putin gave me,"
Yeah. Says kick me on the back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, he did say, you guys vote for me and you won't have to bother with that voting stuff anymore. So, he probably is thinking of cutting some, worldwide dictator deal or something. Who knows?
The triumvirate.
Yeah, he'll give Putin Poland back. He'll say you can have Poland again. I know he's on the verge of telling him that he can have Ukraine.
Oh yeah.
And that's I mean, you can say what you want about Zelensky, but they were invaded.
Yeah.
And also the issue, if you give Ukraine to Russia, that will show that it's possible to invade and take over another country, and that will motivate China to probably attack Taiwan.
Oh, immediately. Absolutely. Agreed.
Oh, yeah.
A good thing. I'm surprised Russia didn't respond sooner. I mean, they don't want Poland. They could go after the Baltic states. They do not have the capacity, the industrial capacity, to fight a prolonged war. What they want, since the U.S. blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, Nord Stream 2, in the Baltic, they want a land route to the Black Sea where they can put their pipelines through securely and not have Western powers blowing up their shit. That's what they want.
Well, gentlemen, if we could hang on a second, I'm going to stop and start the stream so we don't get cut off here. So it's a good time to take a break. Excellent. For a minute, just a minute, and I'm going to stop the stream, and we'll be right back.
Sure.
Live streaming is on.
Okay, we are back on. That's just to avoid the Jitsi telling us that we've hit the limit on the streaming. If we restart, we can go another bit of ways. So, yeah. So let me see. What else do I got here? So let's see. We got birthright citizenship is gone. Gulf of America. That's the new thing. We're going to take back the Panama Canal. Greenland is going to be part of the United States. External Revenue Service. I really.
I mean, like, what does he want to collect? Like taxes from American citizens overseas? The IRS already does that.
No, what he said. What he said
the
was
Department of Treasury collects foreign payments, so that
Sorry,
already
thank you for that
exists.
correction.
Yeah, I think what he said was because of all these tariffs that he wants to put in, he wants to make make them the collector of those taxes. And he said that he thinks he's going to tax other nations. And that is just, again, it goes back to another fundamental misunderstanding about how things work in the real world.
Yeah, exactly.
And didn't he also want to put a 20% tariff on Taiwan, who produces 90% of the world's semiconductors?
Yeah. There's, I mean, that's the low end of tariffs that he wants to put in. I mean, a lot of things he's talking about putting 25% on Canada, and China he wants to put 100% on.
He also do.
Yeah, sure, that seems smart.
10% on my country as well, Sweden. 10% on Europe in general.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm most worried about the 20% on Taiwan, because that's also going to affect American companies like AMD or
absolutely, and Nvidia.
Yeah,
I think Nvidia and AMD are big time into where TSMC is their main supplier. Yeah, people don't know that they don't have their own infrastructure to make chips, and the Taiwan Semiconductor does. That's who. Yeah, they're the contractor.
That's Taiwan's survival plan, right? I mean, they're the only country in the world that makes the high-end chips, and they don't have any companies that use them.
Well, outside of Korea, there's some in South Korea, and there's some in the United States.
There's some here, yeah.
But that's it. There's three areas are places, and that's one of the reasons. I'm sure it's one of the reasons why China wants, an added reason why China wants Taiwan back.
There's a difficulty on starting a production on semiconductors and processors. Every 5 years you have to rebuild a new factory with new components.
And you also need to be able to, worrying about supply chains, you also need to be able to source the raw materials to make pure silicon for the wafers.
Mm-hmm.
And they just announced another $18 billion tech plant here in Ohio. There's already a $20 billion Intel plant. To make silica, you need quartz and you need coal.
Yeah. But
right.
I think this tariff on Taiwan only affect normal people making your computers and the smartphones more expensive. I think that will be the only result of this.
I wonder how much of this could be offloaded onto quantum supremacy if we do achieve that. We supposedly have an edge on that, and maybe you could just get an uplink instead of a chip, just get a link with a quantum computer to do all your chips.
Well, I mean, your consciousness.
Yeah. To speak to what Dunan said earlier about how every 5 years you have to upgrade the tech.
Yeah.
That is slowing down because we're reaching limits of the wavelengths that we can get semiconductors. So that might be slowing down. So maybe the last 10 years or 15 years, but I think other technology is going to be coming in. So maybe it'll be a short-lived thing if that. But still, tariffs are not a good thing in general. Like, considering where the United States is right now, and really the world economy in general, we have built ourselves into massive amounts of interdependence.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody really shitting on that is bad. It's bad for the consumers. It's bad for businesses. I think part of the justification is, oh, we'll bring a manufacturing back to the United States.
But
But you can't.
that's not
Well,
always.
he's not going to make us forget Harry Hoover. Wait, I mean Herbert Hoover. Oh, he already did, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, we are bringing desktop manufacturing back pretty strong in the form of maker spaces and libraries that loan tools. I mean, it's a good thing to be self-reliant. I think we are
yeah.
About
Agreed.
know your customer rules for 3D printers, where you have to
tool exchanging with your neighbors, repair cafes. I've got a repair cafe, and I think they're headquartered in the Netherlands. There's an international movement, starting a repair cafe.
Maker spaces are amazing. I mean, that's a cool. That is a very cool thing. So yeah, but that still doesn't get us to the mass manufacturing of things that bigger things that are more staples. At least yet. I mean, we don't.
Well, you're going to see more stuff being repaired than buying new. You're going to be seeing more stuff that can be made. If you could make it on a 3D printer, you're not going to pay a tariff, to get it.
Very true.
And the skills you get, that's priceless. The talent that you acquire from fixing stuff and making stuff. So, there could be some silver linings. Not holding my breath though.
I think the downsides, at least initially, are going to outweigh the silver linings down the road. So we see we got that. The Department of Government Efficiency. What in the hell do they think is this really just going to be a 2-man operation? Like,
it's purely a crypto troll.
Oh, I know it is. That's why I won't say the word.
It's going to evaporate, and people are going to be like, "What happened?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Elmo even said it in his speech.
I'm speculating on it. Don't get me wrong. I have about $500 in Doge, and I'm speculating on its price action.
It's not a bad play. I don't disagree with that as a play to throw a couple $100 at. But yeah, I had my round with crypto, and I was mining for this was back when Bitcoin was like $800. And I did I did my little thing with it, and it was okay. I didn't lose too much money in mining and buying the equipment and all that, but now, looking back on it now, I wish I would have kept all the Bitcoin that I mined instead of, immediately selling it off, because I had no faith in it. And I think part of it is that it's these tech bros have gotten into it, and they're pumping it.
Well, the reason they're pumping it though is that they're planning to print a shit ton of money pretty soon, and because capital markets can't absorb all the excess capital, so you have to have it go somewhere.
But then there are different cryptocurrencies like Ethereum or Bitcoin. You can get an advantage when mining them if you use ASIC computers, which only rich millionaires have access to. So those cryptocurrencies will become somewhat centralized. But if you go to talk about Monero, you don't get an advantage when you use an A6 computer. You as a normal individual have the same advantage mining that coin, and that's what makes it decentralized.
Yeah, and they're even getting away from the mining side of it. I think a lot of the newer cryptocurrencies aren't even mining based. I think a lot of the
most of them are proof of stake, or tokens on a proof of stake chain, where you have to pay the base currencies fees and gas to move your tokens around.
Right. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of utility digital utility tokens. They're not just memes or souvenirs. They actually do something. Like there's one of my favorite ones is the proof of activity protocol, which came out of a hackathon, I think, a few years back. But it's basically shows that you attended something, and you get a little badge. And there's another one that kind of Bucky Fuller one time said that our currency should be solar kilowatt hours of energy. And there's a coin called Solar Coin. I mean, it's not really gotten a lot of traction, but really that's, would be great to have an energy crypto token, and think of all the peer-to-peer transactions. You don't need safes and security guards, and you save a lot of money when you give people the freedom to move wealth around, peer-to-peer in an open source way. So
there are definitely
the problem
places.
is you need a network to secure tokens. You need enough nodes that are secured and randomized against attacks. I mean, there's like Byzantine fault tolerance is one of the things with proof of stake. With proof of work coins, it's purely hashing power. Whoever controls the most miners gets to decide what happens to the network.
Yeah, if you control just over 50%, you can do whatever you want, right?
You can rewrite the blockchain.
Right.
And move all the coins to yourself.
Well, I don't think
there are hack wars.
Protocol. I don't think there's been a successful hack of the Bitcoin protocol, because you'd have to make all these diverse nodes agree, and it'd be practically impossible to have them vote.
It's theoretically possible, but it would take a ton of computing power.
Yeah, it would take a shit ton, and you'd need to have ASICs. You'd need to have acres and acres of mining farms to attack Bitcoin. I mean, just like it, and they haven't produced that many ASICs to even do it. I mean, they're doing what they do is it's a hashing algorithm, and they're doing something like 1,000 exahashes a second. Okay, exa is bigger than Tera, I think, and then Tera is bigger than Giga. So just think about the computing power that is already thrown behind that. But what they're doing with the proof of work coins is, though, they're mining in areas where there's excess capacity. A lot of the Bitcoin gets mined out of Kazakhstan mining facilities, because they've got nuclear reactors there that are just pumping out electricity that has nowhere else to go.
Right. That was one of the big problems with Bitcoin in the beginning was, man, does it eat up a lot of electricity, even with the ASICs.
Yeah, but then they started sourcing it in locations where the electricity was so cheap,
right,
that the other mining companies couldn't compete with them. And that's why I think, when Trump talks, Trump has to know that, like, the biggest mining pools are in Kazakhstan right now. And they moved there from China after China clamped down on the mining farms. But, yeah, I want that American mined Bitcoin. I don't want that Kazakhstan. It's not good enough for me.
Well, I guess you just have to trace it, right, to where it came from.
I suppose you could trace theoretically you can trace down to the block where it was issued, where it was sent to the exchange. I mean, it's all open source, so.
Well, I mean, are we going to put a tariff on mined Bitcoin? You mean?
Yeah. Maybe you'll start a crypto called Tariff Coin.
Tariff Coin. Yeah, there you go. There's the cryptocurrency for the External Revenue Service.
Yeah, right. Okay. I want
Tariff Coin. There it is.
You can have that one. I'll open source.
We're coming up with solutions to our problems.
I mean, I think honestly he's got too many of these tech billionaires in his ear, and again, I just really don't think he
yeah, but he gets bored with people very quickly.
He does.
In his last administration, I mean, he came on board with all these people, and they all hate him now.
That's true. Well, I mean, at least we dodged the Matt Gaetz bullet.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's one word for it.
Patel for FBI director.
Yeah.
That guy is a genuine terrible human being.
Yeah, you have to be pretty terrible.
I guess we'll have to learn how to live without them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason I believe that Trump will not get assassinated. There will be some attempts, but
Oh God, Vance. Ugh. Stay away from your couch. Don't sit on the couch.
Not
my
the
God.
love seat.
The love seat. Yeah, that's why it's called the love seat.
So, do you think Vance was an insurance pick for VP, or
No. I think Vance is a sycophant that is in a coattail rider,
Yeah.
and
Yes,
it's just
man.
about loyalty, honestly.
Yes,
it's not
man.
like Hegseth, who's an actual DEI hire.
Yeah. Well, that one's another one that I hope doesn't go through, but we'll see.
Yeah, that one's going. Pete Hegseth is going through whether we want him to or not. We're gonna have to face the fact that likely you will have to be as bad as Matt Gaetz to actually have a chance at not getting getting the appointment.
Honestly,
Right.
I think the only reason
that's a hard bar to hit. I mean,
think the only reason Matt Gaetz actually bailed was because there were too many of his colleagues that knew knew at least a little bit of what was going on, and so he's like, nah, this isn't gonna work, and I don't want to go through this.
The problem with Matt Gaetz was that he pissed off too many of his fellow Republicans with some of the shenanigans he pulled in in Congress, and they were gonna, and spite builds up, and thankfully, spite was on our side that time.
Yeah, that Congress is a very it's a small club, and we ain't in it. But if you are,
you're expected to play ball.
You are expected to play ball. So
and you don't piss off the made men or women in the club.
Yep. Yeah, it very much is a criminal organization. I mean, and this new administration is very much shaping up to look like a criminal organization.
What about? I mean, this is old news now, but AOC getting pushed aside for the oversight committee.
Yeah.
What does that say about the Democrats?
Oh, they're just as bad. That's, I mean,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, they've got the patronage crap too, and the loyalty tests and all that stuff. It's just as bad. I just think right now that the Republican Party is operating a little bit more overtly as a criminal organization. Speaking of which, he did say that he was going to name all of the cartels as terrorist organizations, and I think that's just because he doesn't want them competing with his administration in the criminal sphere, and so calling them terrorists instead.
I heard an analysis on Larry Sharp before I joined this conversation. By him naming the cartels criminal organizations, it gives them an AUMF to attack Mexico and Central America.
Right, gives them an excuse to be able to send troops in to hit those guys.
Yep.
AUMF is authorization to use military force. If you
Yep.
want to unpack
which is still a standing congressional order. They have not rescinded the AUMF for the executive office.
And it's been 24 years. I think that was right after 9/11, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, Patriot Act put that in place. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I think that they were saying one emergency act gives the suspension of 127 statutory laws. They could do things like seize bank accounts, shut down the communication grid, which is why you should get into ham radio, by the way. I'm extra class amateur radio with call sign KK6VDR, and it's the world's best hobby. You'll actually live longer because Japan has the most amateur radio people, and they're also the smartest and longest lived people. So
there's a new project in the amateur radio group. It's called Meshtastic.
Oh, I love Mesh Network. Yeah, very pirate friendly stuff, I think.
Yep, absolutely.
I've been testing, about the Heltech V3, two of them, and tested it. It's a fun project. Just receiving a message from testing with your friend is way more fun than just sending a SMS.
Yeah, the text sending is a lot better than the phone or voice mode in a lot of ways because it you could do things like talk about local policies. You could write letters to the editor or vote on city council resolutions. I mean, I think we maybe put too much emphasis on the national, state government people. We should you get really a lot done at the local level. If you really want to, and I think pirates are kind of a localism phenomenon. When you say,
I would say so, and on that note, I would say that very likely in a lot of parts of the United States this year there will be local elections, and it is a good time to start thinking about whether you want to actually run for a local office, and we can help with that. I have especially in the state of Pennsylvania, I have plenty of experience in running local candidates, and it's really not that difficult in most places locally to run. You need 100 signatures or less for most city or local offices to get on the ballot. And most of the time, there's not even a fee that you have to pay, or it's $100.
I could
Get
say
out
that,
there and think about it.
I just needed a nominating petition with 25 registered voters from my district. We just changed to district, so it's no longer at large, which is kind of better. But now my district doesn't come again for election until 2028. But hey, more time to get endorsements and
unfortunately, my city is elected at large, and they do. There's 5 positions, and they do 2 in 1 year, and then every 2 years there's a city election, but they don't elect the whole council at once. But unfortunately, they're at large, and I think there's pluses and minuses to that. I mean,
Well, there was some legal firm that was systematically suing all the governments that did at large, saying it was a violation of equal protection or something like that, or because you're not representing these little niche communities in these parts of the city, and and all the cities, they just cave in and say, okay, we're fine, we'll just change our election system.
I mean, if it's that easy.
I dropped the inauguration speech in the chat there. There's, if you just want to really focus on the craziness, but there it is.
Yes,
Golden Age of America begins right now.
Oh boy. Well, you got that's the transcript too.
Yeah. And it's interesting that he thanked all the previous presidents, and he didn't show up when he had an opportunity to be a previous president. When Joe Biden was inaugurated, he didn't show up for that. So
yeah, I did notice that when I watched the YouTube clip of his speech earlier that he noted all the former presidents, and it was really, did anybody else think he was extremely dull and dry for Trump, like giving that speech today? I think that's what I was very surprised about, is he was very calm, and normally he's very animated, but this speech was it was just like reading off of a cue card, like, we're great, America's gonna be great again, and blah blah blah. It was very much
he knows he's termed out. He's not doing re-election, rah re-election stuff. He's one term and out.
Inaugural speech is like an inaugural poem. Snoop Dogg will come and save him. He's probably doing it right now on stage. Snoop Dogg is at the inaugural ball, so he doesn't need to have a great inaugural speech. I think he just wanted to get through it.
I think you want to stay on task too.
I'm just disappointed in people. Like, stop trying to hang on to this guy. I don't know, man. How can we not talk about the TikTok thing? We didn't talk about the TikTok thing. Like, how? Oh, and he did mention about the hostages in the Middle East, them coming home. I mean, how much was that out of the Ronald Reagan playbook? I mean, come
Yeah.
on.
Very much.
I think we can solidly say that that like Ronald Reagan, Trump committed treason and talked to another country behind the current president's back exclusively to get a leg up on the current election.
Oh, that was
Well,
complete treason on Reagan's part. Yeah, and no one it just got a pass for that, I guess, right?
well,
You
I
know, this
mean,
thing is that you have to be extremely conservative, because the more conservative you are in America, the more you can get away with completely illegal because people will because the other conservatives will let you get away with it.
I
Yeah,
think that's
At
what we're
least
learning.
I think
Well,
they
it's
get
that
they get right.
They also have a code of silence. Howie
against.
North took the fall for Reagan because
Yeah.
when it came down to who's going to take the fall, it was Oliver North.
Oh yeah,
Contra scandal. So,
and he well, I don't know if he still is, but he used to be a big star on Fox News.
yeah, I mean he had a career after that. I'm just saying, he was the one where it stopped. He says, "Yeah, it was me. It was my idea."
Fun fact about Ollie North is, I think this is fact checkable, but supposedly he removed the dust covers from the rescue attempt when they had all the helicopters staged, and that's why all the helicopters ingested, the sand, and they didn't fly.
Oh shit.
No, I don't think that's true. I think that the American helicopter design never had accounted for the sand. And one of the true ironies is that Carter actually launched a rescue mission and it failed due to the helicopters ingesting sand, but it was classified. And so when we had the Gulf War and we went back to the desert, we had the same problem, and nobody learned from the failed mission when that should have been something that they could have gone, aha, our helicopters don't work because they eat sand in normal operations.
I don't know how you can think about how a turbine actually works and not think that sand would be a problem.
Well, that wasn't the only reason that we stopped using helicopters in the desert, and specifically it has to do with the conditions of the fighting that was in both Somalia, Iraq, and in Iran. And it was that most of these operations that the helicopters were suffering losses in was in dense urban areas where just man pads are a thing. Because one of the reasons why we stopped using helicopters in urban areas in Iraq was because they were taking so much fire from ground rockets, from just RPG
RPGs, yep.
sentinels.
RPGs.
And sadly, we lost too many, people from just a bunch of what could be, effectively a bunch of, 20 somethings with rocket launchers could beat the top of the line helicopter in the world.
I mean, it is amazing how well a bunch of ragtag troops can do against the United States Army if they work together and are actually even mildly organized.
It's like an irony of using one of those javelin missiles on a tent in the desert when the person operating it earns $80,000 a year and the person you're wiping out is earning $1,000 a year. It's just like it's the ultimate capitalist profit tool, though.
Yeah, $6 million missile, right? Or that's probably even low.
I don't know what the javelin costs. I'm just saying they were taking out tents in the desert with javelin missiles.
Yeah, you can bankrupt an enemy pretty quick if they're using that fighting strategy. But,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Same with drones. Yeah.
They're done full asymmetrical nowadays. So
drone warfare is, especially the new little stuff, is crazy.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to the inauguration for a moment. Did anybody else notice that Melania looks a lot like Cad Bane from Star Wars?
Oh my God, I did see that hat. I saw it was that hat, the round, like it's almost like a straw hat.
What that mean is?
Yeah.
Isn't that like Spanish Inquisition retro or something?
Yeah.
I saw the hat. I mean,
I don't catch all these references. You guys are just like throwing stuff over my head. I saw the picture of her in that weird hat.
It was a weird hat, definitely.
Catch the reference because I didn't see the movie. So
Oh well, Mitch is leaving us a message that he's leaving us. But...
Yeah, Mitch, we didn't. So, well, anybody have anything else that we didn't talk about? I think we can probably wrap this up.
Well, I think this could be, kind of a pirate opportunity in some ways. So don't despair.
Absolutely.
I did want to bring something up here regarding the TikTok thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that earlier.
How much do any of you pay attention to AOC at all?
I don't usually, but I catch her every once in a while.
So AOC posted to this week about the TikTok situation. And from what she said on her video that she made, is that in regards to the national security concern, the information that they were given behind closed doors was... You remember how bad the intelligence was to get us to go into Iraq?
Oh yeah, it was that was a fraud.
That was
a
terrible
fraud.
intelligence and basically just the same crap that our current, tech companies are doing to us right now. But apparently, and this is at least the comment section implies this, is that the primary reason why was because of a donor wanting it to remove the influence of it from the United States. And I'm pretty sure we know which country on this planet and which organization in the US would want this app to be removed from service for the United States.
Well, at least two of them were at the inauguration.
Oh, ain't that rich?
And so was the CEO of TikTok. He was there too. I mean, honestly,
it's a club, and you're not part of it.
That's right. It's a club, and we're not part of it. Yeah, it's. I really think this is just another thing that it was orchestrated. I think again, I agree with that assessment. I think the poor excuse that I saw is that the Chinese have a law that says they can demand the data, and a Chinese company must give it up.
So do we. So we have that same law on the books.
Yeah.
If the government really care about American citizens' privacy, they would also make a law that prohibits American social media to collect.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Right on,
there's nothing that TikTok is collecting and is going to China that isn't already going to multiple other Chinese-based sources. Like, why was TikTok singled out? There's plenty of other Chinese, app manufacturers and things that are out there, and we're doing it. We do it to ourselves too. Elmo and Zuck, they both do it. I mean, yeah, I'm not. It's a silly thing.
I think privacy and intellectual property have pretty much that horse has left the barn, a long time ago.
Well, I think there is going to be some There's going to be some more discussions on intellectual property, especially with the AI stuff. And honestly, I think that might get a little bit lessened if the big tech companies start buying into it. Because they want to make the best AI right now. That's the race. That's the race right now. So, these people that are just intellectual property holders that are suing these tech companies, if the tech companies are as powerful as they seem right now, there might be coming some more fair use with some of this intellectual property, especially stuff that's publicly accessible on the internet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, unless you can load your AI with all the data that ever existed, it's not going to be the best AI, right?
Yeah, and there's a whole new level of AI coming that's agent based. That's not a large language model. So we might be even just moving beyond that technology and into new stuff. And AI is a rabbit hole that I get sucked into way too often. And the stuff that's happening right now that's really on the bleeding edge is kind of mind blowing. If it actually works the way that they're reporting that it works. So, yeah. But
are you guys gonna run Vermin again? You think, or?
We are. I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I mean that's 4 years away.
Yeah.
3 years away, or so.
Trying to get the scoop.
Well,
I
Vermin is
actually-
always
It'll
welcome
be
here.
4 years away. If
I
not,
actually, did you guys see that Afro Man ran for president?
Sorry, gang.
Afro Man?
Yeah, the guy that was a one-hit wonder on MTV in the '90s. He lives one county over from me, and he's a rap guy, and he lives in the middle of, you know, nowhere in the country, which is not good for rap guys. And so the sheriff's department busted up his house looking for drugs, and
Yeah, of course.
so I mean, the guy's life was really in danger because they were going in full tilt with, you know, semi-automatic rifles and body armor and all that happy crap. But he wrote a song called Lemon Pound Cake because one of the cops was so distracted by his lemon pound cake on the counter that he actually had to put his gun point in a safe direction and look at that pound cake. He was thinking about getting a slice.
Oh my God.
Oh.
There
So
were a lot of independent. There always is a lot of independent candidates for president, that are not Democrat or Republican, and the more that you're into third party politics, the more that you'll see those people. So
they'll just pop out of the woodwork.
They do, absolutely.
Well, hey, gentlemen, I want to say
scrubbing
thank
your
you
floors,
to
and then 3 more
all
will
of
pop
you.
out of the hole.
Sure. Well, that's
Well, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate
and
it.
I want to say it's been great to have really, highbrow, relatively highbrow and fun conversation. But I dropped, if you really want to go low and see some hilarious animated spoofs of our new administration, Project 25, the series is on from Scary Ketchup, and I dropped a link to his YouTube page in the channel, in the chat rather. Scary Ketchup. So they say leave them laughing when you go. You tune into that, and it's pretty hilarious stuff. So,
well, I'm going to check that out.
All right. Well, thanks for having us USTP guys over for fun and hijinks, man.
You guys are always welcome.
Real quick, I just wanted to say thank you to the Transhumanist Party members for joining us. I think this will be one of many opportunities we'll have in the near future to work again together and collaborate and do events like this.
Absolutely. Yeah, because hey, I think we all ought to start sporting Rebel Alliance T-shirts, right? Like that.
I'm happy
I've been brainstorming
support the Urban Supreme campaign. I know he's busy in Washington right now with everything that's going on. There are a few people from this campaign that are in the Washington area. It's really cold out there, so just keep them in your thoughts.
Will do. Have a great evening.
Yeah, and with that, that's a good place for us to wrap everything up. Anybody have any last words?
I have one thing to say.
Go ahead, Mitch.
I want to say if purchasing isn't ownership, piracy isn't theft.
There it is.
Good
and
one.
one more time, I'm gonna plug uspirates.org/join and get out there and join our Discord. That way it'll keep you up to date with everything that's going on. We're usually good about keeping everything up to date there, so get on there and check us out. And so hopefully we all survive this stupid administration, and we will have another event sort of like this, I'm sure, here soon. But to find a good reason. Good reason. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
I'd be amiss if I didn't say you can find the Transhumanist Party online at transhumanist-party.org. So we have an interesting platform, and we use ranked choice voting to create it, which I think you guys are on board with. So yeah, it's like the more intelligent, the more minds, the better.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will be back on Jitsi not this weekend, but the following week for our regular meeting. And we will soon have an announcement on the bringing Talk the Plank back, but I don't have that info just yet. But it'll be soon. So tune into our YouTube channel. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.